Who's Greg?
I just want to get the paperwork. Not going anywhere.
The other day I was at a meeting and I moved my computer screen, but I actually hit the off button.
Okay, you guys are all set. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome everyone to the March 1st, 2021 meeting of the Orange, Connecticut Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we begin, I just want to introduce the members with us today. We have Mr. Matt Pickering, we have Mr. David Crow, we have Jack Demurzen, our zoning officer, Pat Panza, Ruth Miller, Greg Natalino. My name's Noah Eisenhandler. We also have Deb Stonick and Bonnie Sayat. Before we begin, just a couple outlines. Thank everybody for their patience. It's still a learning process here.
Yes.
Before anybody speaks before the board, they'll introduce themselves and give their address. It will take 4 votes, positive votes, to grant the requested variance. We do have 5. We do have a full board tonight, or we have enough members tonight. Hearing tonight is going to be regular member Pat Panza, myself, Mr. Miller, Mr. Natalino, and Mr. Crow. I'm going to ask that the 5, those are the 5 who will be hearing the case today. Okay. That doesn't prevent Matt from weighing in as he deems appropriate. It will take 4 positive votes for a variance to be granted. Anybody wishing to speak will do so and identify themselves. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will have the right to do that. If there is opposition, then that person, the applicant, will have the right to do a rebuttal. It's not going to go on and on and on, folks. We're gonna get through this tonight. Now, before we begin, we have the minutes. Our last meeting was November 2nd, and those minutes have been distributed to everybody. Is there a motion to grant those minutes as they are written?
So moved.
Okay, I'm sorry, who made the motion? Rudy? Rudy made the motion.
Sure.
Is there someone who seconds it?
I'll second it.
Second it. Pat second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are done. Now I'm going to read tonight's agenda. We have one matter on the agenda. Notice in accordance, legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Orange Zoning Board of Appeals will hold an online Zoom meeting on Monday, March 1st, 2021 at 7 p.m. to conduct a public hearing on the following. Petition number 1815, submitted by Stephen and Loretta Boucher. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Correct.
For property known as 274 Penrose Circle for the construction of an access staircase to the existing attic in the dwelling. A variance of section 383-30C, setback from other property lines, is requested. Now, this is a continuation from the 11-2 meeting, but if my notes reflect that the 11-2 meeting, we didn't have a meeting, we simply just continued it, awaiting an A2 survey, which has been submitted. Therefore, I think this is a first look at this, even though we...
Correct. I put continuation just as it appeared second on the agenda, but the public hearing was never opened.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the application materials are on file in the Orange Zoning Office. Copy of this notice has been filed with the Orange Town Clerk, dated Orange, Connecticut, the 16th day of February 2021. Having said that, I'll call the first one, and that would be Mr. and Mrs. Boucher. I ask you simply identify yourself, and what do you want to tell us?
Loretta Boucher.
Stephen Boucher.
I just wanted to know if you wanted me to give a recap of the situation, or you all have the materials, and I'm sure you've read it. If you have questions, do you want me to just give you an outline presentation?
It's your presentation. I know we have. I know you hired Mr. Heiza as your PE, and he submitted some documentation. With the survey. So this is a new application. We're looking at as a whole new beginning here. So
that's fine.
Over here.
Okay, so I'm hopeful that you read the initial submission that was given before November, and then the subsequent submission, which we submitted in January. And we're here to answer any of your questions. But to recap the hardships, there's two that I can identify. One is the location of what the family has called the cottage before we did the reconstruction. And the location of the building on the lot is the main hardship. And that was decided by Stephen's grandfather many years ago. And the other hardship is that there's no basement. Therefore, there's no basement to put the mechanicals. So the mechanicals have to go on the third floor. And the reason, I'll give you a little history. When it was originally constructed, it was for farm animals, and therefore it's a cement slab. But then it was remodeled years later when his grandfather moved into it and made it a house so that his daughter could bring a family. And that's Stephen's mother and father. And they lived in the front house on Old Tavern Road. And the grandparents lived in back. And then Stephen, being the fourth child, he, got the inheritance, or he, purchased it from his mother. And we decided to build it into a improved house, today's standards, and hoping that his grandfather would be pleased that we have, kept it in the family. But again, the hardship is the location on the lot and no basement.
Anything
The
else?
survey-
you can tell us, ma'am?
The survey was done by Bob Heise, as you said, and he did the original survey before it was subdivided, because it was much more acreage. And then they subdivided, and Stephen has the last lot that's in the name of the family. And he's done the recent one that you requested, and was submitted in January.
Anything else you want to tell us, ma'am?
I can answer questions, but I think that's the hardship is what I think you needed to hear from us.
All right. So you're looking for a 15-foot side yard variance, correct?
Mhm. Yes, please.
And you tell me the mechanicals are upstairs in the attic?
Yes, that's why the staircase is required, or needed. The water tank is up there, and it's, what's the diameter? 32 inches. So you need a doorway just in case you had to replace it. So the hardship continues with whoever owns the house 100 years from now. I mean, you're going to have to replace it at some point. And the boiler or burner, what's it called? Burner? Burner. The burner is up there, so you need it for maintenance. You have to have a repairman go up there. So
there's, I see the picture. I don't know what picture I'm referring to here.
Is that yeah, that was before they were put in. Yeah, the mechanicals are in now. We've had it insulated and all the mechanicals are in there now.
Is that room going to be finished?
No.
No sheetrock?
I don't think so, no. We just have the mechanicals in there right now. We don't have the sheetrock in the house done yet. We just did the foam, the insulation upstairs in the attic.
Well, do you plan on sheetrock in that attic area?
It'll probably be sheetrocked, but it's gonna have walls. It's gotta have walls so you don't see it from downstairs. So there's possibly gonna be sheetrock, but it's just gonna be so that it's a room.
Okay, and the room is gonna be used for what?
Just the mechanicals.
Well, storage, I would imagine storage.
Well, you might, well, yeah, of course, if you're gonna have, besides the mechanicals, there's extra floor space, you put some shelves and you may put some kitchen stuff that you don't want in the kitchen, or I don't know. We have plenty of storage in the yard. We have the barn, so we don't really need that much storage.
No. Because of the situation, what they have there, the furnace and the hot water heater, they're going to be required to sheetrock that area for combustion.
I understand that. I'm aware of that. Is it going to turn into a rec room? That's what I'm asking.
There's no room for a rec room. It's all the mechanicals take up the space.
Really?
What's the height of the ceiling over there?
height of the ceiling? 7 feet maybe? And it's not the whole hut, because of the way the roof is, it goes straight up, so it's not that big. Did we give them dimensions?
Now, anybody else on the board have any questions?
Yeah, I would want to be assured that that space would never be used for residential purposes.
Absolutely not. It can't with all those mechanicals up there. You wouldn't want anything else up there.
Well, I still want to be assured that it's not going to happen.
It won't happen. It'll never happen.
You make it part of the condition, Rudy.
No intention to ever have that be living space ever.
Could I ask a question? And the staircase that exists now, there's already a staircase there. And I
Yes,
believe that's on the, is it the west side? Am I correct?
east side, east.
East side. Have you considered putting it on the west side? Then you wouldn't need variance.
The septic system is over there. I think I gave you pictures of that. When you look out the window on the west side and you look down, you see all the septic pipes. And there's the roof to the door also. You'd have to go through the roof.
I don't know. All right, so the
No,
hardship is the location of the building on the lot and the fact that there's no basement to store the mechanicals.
Correct.
Where were the mechanicals prior?
Well, it was a cottage and his grandfather built the house on the same slab, but it was only the one bedroom and a living room, dining room, and that was on the north side. So in the back, only maybe 2/3 was the bedroom. So there was that last quadrant. The mechanicals were behind the bedroom on the slab.
Anybody else have any questions of the applicant?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Pat.
I see the stairway. Obviously, all these stairways are built right now, and you found out later that you needed a variance to do what you had to do there. I can see that. My question is, in the design, instead of having, if you look on the east side, and I believe that's the stairs to the attic, the east side.
Yeah.
I question the way they got the layout of the stairs. They could have minimized the impact of the variance by turning the stairs back in the other direction. So
Towards the north side?
Or I believe towards the north side. In other words, back towards the landing of the upper part of the attic. So in other words, you've got a set of stairs coming down to a landing. Then I assume that there's a step down to another landing, and then the stairs that go down to grade. Is that correct?
Yeah, the reason that it was designed that way is for safety. It's very high, and you wouldn't want to go straight up, especially if you were carrying something heavy.
That's not what I said. What I'm saying to you is this. Where the stairs come down, the normal stairs as far as 14 steps coming down to a platform, okay? Instead of coming out tangent to the cottage, what he could have done, and I'm not sure who the builder was or whether this was sent to the building department or planning and zoning. From what I gather out of the information you've supplied, it was not. So technically, the design that they got there over exceeded your setback lines. They could have minimized the setback line by turning the stairway, instead of going towards the barn, they could have turned the stairway going parallel with the cottage. So you could have picked up, and I'm assuming that stairway is about 4 foot wide. Is that correct?
Yes.
There's no dimensions on here. So I'm assuming that's what it is.
Correct.
And then you're picking up.
Yeah, but tell them the property line for vacant is here at just six and one half dozen.
Are you saying then that it would go from the attic?
In other words, the stairway
go
coming
down
from the
to-
attic, the stairway
Going down
coming,
toward- go down
Please only
toward-
speak one at a time. One at a
Hang on.
time, please.
hang on for a second, okay? What I am saying to you is this. The stairway coming down from the attic, which is the high part, comes down to a landing,
Mhm.
okay? That landing that comes out now, that looks like approximately 6 feet before you come to another landing, and then the stairs goes down to grade. That's what it looks like. What they could have, what the builder could have done was take that stairway, go back towards the cottage, meaning parallel with the cottage,
Mhm.
and you would have picked up about 5.5 feet.
So you would, that second part that you're talking about would go back towards the north.
Right, which would be parallel with the cottage. In other words, instead of going out towards the barn, it would have went in the opposite direction, which would have came off that platform, and you could have gone down towards where you see where it says landing typical. It would have ran in that same towards that direction, and then you wouldn't have had all this footage here for a variance. In other words, right now you've got 10 feet because you picked up 6 and 4 is 10 feet.
Now, I don't know, I'm not actually picturing what you're saying, but we have all the electrical underground. So you would
Yeah,
have to
that
go-
doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You only got piers here. That's not going to affect that.
What he's saying is instead of the stairway coming down to a landing, making a right angle, going down to another landing, and then making a second right angle, you come down to one landing and then double back along the
Yes.
side of the house.
Exactly. So in other words,
So
what you're
180
doing-
degrees off one landing.
right. So in other words, all this footage that whoever the builder was and how, however they did it, they could have saved the footage by doing this, and you still have the same, when the event is, you still end up with the same thing but less variance.
Mhm, mhm,
But this is built already.
mhm.
So, I mean, that's my 2 cents in the thing. I personally, the variance did not have to be if it was done correctly in the beginning.
Can I just ask one question so I can be clear what you're saying? When you come down to that second landing, would you say it would pivot back towards the north before that landing? So that landing would have been higher up?
Runs
No,
parallel to
I'm-
the house.
No, what I'm saying is when you come down to that landing, the next part of that landing, the stairway, instead of going towards the barn, goes parallel to the garage. So in other words, the stairs are closer to the other stairs
Mhm.
that you have here. You've got so much distance here, and it wasn't necessary. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Any other questions? You understand, Ms. Bruce, we can't make you do anything. It's just questions they're asking. It's up to you how you want to, build your house.
Mhm.
And we're only here to vote on the variance. We're not here to give building advice or suggest you do anything other than put your application in, which you have done. And our decision tonight is based solely on the application.
Okay.
Anybody else, anything else, ma'am?
No.
Okay.
Other than answering your questions.
I'm sorry?
Other than answering any questions?
Okay, any more questions for anybody from the board? All right, anybody else wish to speak in favor of the applicant? Okay. I should indicate that we do have some letters, and I will read those into the record at the end. Anyone wish to speak in opposition? Attorney Studer?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. For the record, my name is Stephen Studer. First of all, is my audio sufficient? Can everyone hear me?
We hear you.
It is.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
5x5.
So I am an attorney at Berkshire Moses with offices at 75 Broad Street, Milford, Connecticut. And I'm here this evening on behalf of Kevin and Marcy Dakin, for the property owners at 66 Petro Circle, which abuts the Boucher property to the east. They are concerned in part because the exterior landing, which as has been noted, which is at the attic level, looks out over and down upon their fenced-in backyard, and the exterior staircase comes within 10 feet of the property line. They believe that this interferes with their privacy and the reasonable use of their property. It also diminishes their enjoyment of their property. The stairs were built, as you all know, without any town approval. There are, we believe, several alternatives. There's plenty of room to put the stairs on the western side of the building, and we'll get back and discuss that in a little bit more detail shortly. But there's absolutely no reason why this can't be done. According to the town GIS mapping and the survey that was presented by the Bouchers back in December, there's at least 86 feet on the western side of the building to the closest part of the property line, most of which is actually up to 144 feet away. So putting the stairway on the westerly side of the property line would pose no problem for the Bouchers, and it certainly would not have created any kind of interference with privacy or reasonable use and enjoyment of their neighbor to the west because of the very large setback distances. The house itself, the footprint of the existing structure that they are adding the second story to is exactly 25 feet from the Dakins property line, which essentially there's no room to build on that side without essentially encroaching into the setback. So in addition to my client's opposition, we have submitted to Mr. Dermagian a petition signed by 4 of the 6 existing abutting property owners who are objecting to the variance being requested. And simply stated, I would note that the applicant has not shown a hardship. And as you all know, no variance can be granted without proof that the application of the zoning setback regulation in this case will result in an unusual hardship for the applicant. The case law is clear that the hardship must be different in kind from that generally affecting properties in the same zoning district. It must be unique or unusual. The fact that they are disappointed by the location of the existing structure on the property or their inability to do as they wish when it comes to building the addition, those are not elements which would constitute an unusual hardship. The hardship must deprive the owner of the property of all reasonable use and value, which clearly that's not the situation in this case. And particularly in this case, where the hardship is self-created, the Zoning Board of Appeals cannot grant a variance. It's not just that you shouldn't grant a variance. The Supreme Court has said in the case of Pollock versus ZBA of Norwalk that you have no authority to grant a variance in a situation like that. And I would submit to you again that there's absolutely no legal hardship, and their claimed hardships are entirely self-created. So again, you all know the stairs were constructed in the setback without first requesting a variance. Frankly, the applicant should know better, I think does know better, but having been caught is now asking for a variance after the fact. This isn't the first time the applicant has been less than candid with the town. So in 2018, Mr. Boucher presented a plan to then zoning official Paul Denise, asking for a determination of zoning compliance. And that plan did not show the external stairs on the east side of the property, nor did they show them on the west side of the property. There were no external stairs shown on the plan at all. Now, in fact, the zoning application that was signed off on by Mr. Denise clearly states that the footprint of the existing dwelling is to be maintained. That's a quote. It's on the plan approval, the zoning permit approval that's in your office. And Mr. Denise has told Mr. Demergian, I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing that, Jack, you'll have to excuse me, has told Mr. Demergian that he specifically discussed with Mr. Boucher that he could not encroach onto the setback on the east side of the property without a variance. So this was not something which should come as a surprise to Mr. or Mrs. Boucher, because Mr. Denise made a specific point, both on the application as well as in his conversations with the applicant, that obviously you need to stay away from anything on that side of the property unless one first obtained a variance. So the plans given to Mr. Denise, as I said before, do not show the external stairway, but the plans that were submitted to the building official for a building permit were different. And they did show an external stairway in the setback on the easterly side of the property. And frankly, those plans were never shown to Mr. Denise. At least that's the story I was told. But the stairway shown on the plans given to the building official is not the same stairway as the one constructed, and that's before you this evening. The stairway shown on the plans was for access to the second floor. This one has access to the attic. So it's interesting that there's no internal stairway between the first and second floors. Second floor access is now from a deck on the northerly rear side of the property. The north side of the property is essentially the side facing away from Old Tavern and towards Petro Circle. So initially, access appeared to be, from the building official's perspective, on the east side of the building to the second floor. It's actually now on the north side of the building to the second floor. So therefore, the stairway on the east side of the building is not necessary for access to the second floor. So essentially, neither plan, the one submitted to Mr. Denise or the one submitted to the building official, has been followed in this instance. Now, according to Mr. Dakin, my client, Mr. Boucher actually built the addition without the staircase on the eastern side of the property and with a window in the attic on the eastern elevation facing his property. That window was subsequently removed, a door installed, and the exterior encroaching stairway constructed. The applicant is claiming that in his written remarks that the deck on the north side of his property is part of the hardship. And presumably because of roof trusses, he or she states that the attic can only be accessed from the exterior, either from the easterly or westerly sides of the house. Frankly, since there's no interior staircase shown, poor planning or inadequate planning on part of the applicant is not a legal hardship. And as noted earlier, there is ample space for the stairs on the westerly side of the house. Now, the applicant claims we can't use the westerly side of the house because of a septic system. Initially, in their written remarks, it was 25 feet from the house. According to Mr. Heise's survey, it's a little over 18 feet from the house to the septic tank, and the leaching fields are well beyond that. But you can clearly place a 15-foot deep staircase between the house and the septic system. And I would note that both the septic system and my client's house are probably equivalent distances from the, not my client's house, rather my client's property line, excuse me, are equivalent distances roughly from the structure. So if you could fit a 15-foot encroaching stairway on the east, you certainly can fit a 15-foot encroaching stairway on the west. Actually, it wouldn't be encroaching. It would simply be a stairway on the west, which would fit nicely into the overall size and dimensions of the lot. So the septic is a pretext. It's an excuse. And that's not a hardship. And even if it were, and it isn't, it's also self-created, because all of this should have been thought through. If you're going to put the mechanicals on the third floor because there's no place else to put them, then why weren't they shown in the plans to the building official? They weren't. There's no mechanical shown anywhere on the plans given to the building official. Mr. Boucher says the small overhang, or Mrs. Boucher, excuse me, says the small overhang over the door on the west side means the stairs can't be built on that side. Again, this is another pretext, because the stairs to the attic can easily be constructed without impacting that overhang, which is down on the basically at grade, or the overhang could be modified or otherwise clearly accommodated. And I did submit, for the record, I don't know if you all have seen it, but I submitted a PDF of the plan that I can hold up here in a moment. I can't really do screen sharing, I'm sorry, but what this plan, actually, let me go to a different, yeah, that's it, okay, yes. All right, so what this plan shows, I scaled out the stairway on the westerly side of the building exactly as it is on the easterly side of the building. And you can quite clearly see that it fits neatly in there without getting anywhere near the septic tank. And with respect to, and you can also see that there's no variances required. The second part of this is if you go to the pictures that were submitted by the Bouchers, part of their application, I did not submit these, but they're both dated 12/13 2020. One is of the east, the other is of the west elevation. If you look at the east elevation, you can clearly see that the stairway starts up high, just under the eave, under the peak, follows the eaves more or less down, and then makes the transition from the landing, out perpendicular to the house. Well, one could do the same thing on the westerly side. And if one basically, make sure I got my directions right. Yeah. If one basically follows along the eaves and then makes the transition out, you can see basically that you're nowhere near this overhang. And here's the septic system down here. So this stairway can go boom and right out this way and then up towards the north and essentially be nowhere near those two alleged hardships.
She captured the light too.
So the other option might be to put in a pull-down set of stairs, although it's been stated that you need access to be able to get the mechanicals in and out. Well, maybe there's room on the second floor and the first floor for mechanicals. I'm not sure how many mechanical systems are we talking about here. Is this a one family or a two family? But neither event, it should have all been analyzed and thought out before and not part of this after the fact type of poor planning. The roof trusses, which are again in the written materials claimed to be another type of hardship, clearly would not preclude a pull down stairway. There's really no reason why an internal staircase couldn't have been provided if one was really necessary. But thirdly, there's other options to where you place your mechanicals. Inside the two apartments, or one on each floor, or if there's only, or you could just do a small addition on the westerly side of the property. We see from the survey that there's a lot of room over there for a small little addition to be added, where essentially the mechanicals could be built at grade. So again, the applicant's lack of foresight and lack of planning is self-created and does not constitute a legal hardship which would support the requested variance. So in summation, there are clear alternatives to the proposed side yard encroachment which do not violate the zoning regulations, and also the cases clearly hold that a hardship must originate in the zoning regulations themselves and arise out of circumstances beyond the control of the applicant. All the reasons given by the applicant for a hardship are self-created, and it's clear that a self-inflicted hardship is never proper grounds for a variance. So I would just close by summarizing that the power to grant variances should only be exercised sparingly and only when the requirements have been met. There's a 2015 Supreme Court case, which is actually really, really important and very much on point with respect to this particular application. It overturned a number of prior cases, and it established two things of, I think, very of significance to this agency and this application. One is that the unique characteristics of a property which make it difficult to comply with zoning regulations, and that's what we've been described here. We've been described some unique characteristics of this property, which the applicant claims make it difficult to comply with the zoning regulations, but not impossible. Those difficult characteristics, or those characteristics rather, which make it difficult, are not a hardship, unless the property would have no economic value if the regulations were applied. And we know that is clearly not the situation before you. And finally, the same case, E&F Associates versus the Fairfield Zoning Board of Appeals, specifically overruled the case of Stillman versus Reading Zoning Board of Appeals. Now, Stillman basically stood for the proposition, well, essentially, Stillman granted a setback variance for an addition, which the board found couldn't be built anyplace else in the property because of the location of the structure, the location of the existing septic system, and the existing well. Sounds very similar to the current situation here. But that case and that rationale have been specifically overruled by the Connecticut Supreme Court. So in this case, the location of the septic, the door overhang on the westerly elevation, the lack of a basement, none of those things constitute a hardship. And I think I've clearly shown by the exhibit that I submitted that really a hardship isn't necessary in this case, because they can build the stairway exactly the way they've got it designed right now. and on the other side of the house without any adverse impacts to their house, to their property, to the neighbors, or to the zoning regulations of the town of Orange. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
The applicants will have an opportunity to respond, but is there any questions for Mr. Studer, Attorney Studer? Not hearing anything? Thank you. Is
Thank
there
you.
anyone else wish to speak in opposition to the application? Okay,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
please identify yourself.
My name is Kevin Dakin, and I reside at 266 Petro Circle.
Okay, what do you like to say, sir?
So first of all, of course, I join Attorney Studer in his assessment. And I would say that it speaks volumes for how important it is to my family that we've retained an attorney to represent us tonight. We bought our house about 8 years ago. We've done extensive work to the outside and the inside. And we've taken great care to create a safe and a private yard for ourselves, for our children, and our guests. Now, we're all entitled to the use and enjoyment of our properties. But that use and enjoyment can't come at the expense of your neighbor's use and enjoyment of his property. And while I wouldn't presume to explain to this board why we have zoning regulations, I would imagine that one purpose is to safeguard that neighbor's rights. So we've fenced in most of our backyard. We've planted arborvitae trees that aren't yet fully grown. And this staircase, because of its position on the lot, towers over our yard. It's well above the fence and well above the trees, even when they will be fully grown. From our vantage point, to us, it's an eyesore, it's intrusive, and it interferes with the use and enjoyment of our property in the privacy of our backyard. So I just joined in Attorney Studer's comments, and I asked the board tonight to deny the application. Thank you.
Any questions to Mr. Dakin? Okay. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition to the applicant? Okay. I'm going to close that part of the meeting. The applicants have an opportunity to respond if you choose to do so.
Yeah, I object to all of what this attorney has stated. He made accusations which are not true about us, and he overreached in many categories. And I'm not going to sit here and nitpick it. I am not a lawyer, and I cannot really, in defense of myself, speak to him because he is a lawyer. So I just want you to know that he offended us and that he many lies and fabrications. And he's wrong about putting it on the west side because that window was straight above the roof. We'd have to dismantle it. So we believe, yes, we made errors. Yes, I made an error by our ex-general contractor. He had told me that the plans had the stairs. He gave me plans. The stairs were over there with, yes, they were on the town. Yes, I was wrong. I should have verified what he told me, but I did not. So it is my fault. I take responsibility for that. But I did nothing where I have to be ashamed of what I did. I was above board in all my decisions. I take offense to his accusations, and the board will vote how they vote. But we did everything honestly and the way we thought was best.
I'm not.
And it is a hardship the way that the property is located on the property.
Let me respond. Despite what council's representations are, I can assure you that this board looks at the record. We looked at what was your submissions and what submissions were done by the people in opposition. We're not looking to who said
no,
what.
I understand that. You wanted my comments unhidden, so I just had to speak.
Okay, let me finish. That has very little relevance to how this board decides. I mean, the statute is clear regarding hardship and what has to be shown. And that's what this board's job is.
I agree.
But having said that, I just have a question. Is there access from the first floor to the second floor? Interior access?
No, no.
So how's access gotten? Is it through this?
The access to the first floor is 2 doorways, and the access to the second floor is 2 second floor doorways.
Okay. And the staircase for the second floor is that the staircase in question, or am I missing something here?
The staircase is from the ground to the third floor. That's in question.
Okay. Doesn't stop at the second floor.
No.
That's another
It's just to get to the attic. And you can't
Okay.
do it from the west
I can
side.
tell by the picture.
There's septic, the septic system is out in the yard, yes, but there's pipes that go to the septic system. And the staircase, if you were to put it there, would go right through the pipes that go to the septic system. Plus it would go through the roof that is the doorway that his grandfather built there. It's part of the structure. We didn't put that there. So you cannot have access to the west side of the house. It's impossible.
Anything else you wish to add, ma'am?
No, thank you.
All right. Before we finish, I do have a couple letters I want to read into the record. These are, first one is, hi, I'm quoting this. Hi, the Zoning Board of Appeals. We are Mr. and Mrs. Stephen Boucher's neighbor. We agreed to our neighbor's request for a 15-foot variance for the staircase on the east side of their house to their attic. Sincerely, Bolu and Lin Yan Song. The second one is submitted by Attorney Suter, is a document labeled petition to the Orange Zoning Board of Appeals. We, the owners of the property adjacent to 274 Pet Rose Circle, petition the Orange Zoning Board of Appeals to deny the application of Stephen and Loretta Boucher for the variance of section 383-30C, setback from other property lines. And that's been signed by Kevin and Marcy Dakin, 266 Pet Rose, Tara and Eric Malengas, I'm guessing 267 Pet Rose Circle, Rich and Lisa Alteri, I believe it says, 280 Pet Rose, and Greta Solomon, 263 Old Tavern Road, Orange, Connecticut. All right. I haven't heard all the testimony and submission of the documents. Is there a motion to close the public aspect of the hearing?
Make
So
Make a
moved.
motion.
Okay, Greg makes a motion, Rudy seconded it. We are closed. All right, discussion. It's a classic case of, is there a hardship? And if it is so, is it self-created?
I have a question.
Pat?
No. A couple of things that bother me here is that the way the house is structured, as far as I can see, is a one-family residence, as I see it. It looks to me, if you've got this exterior stair and there's no access to the second floor from the first floor, and this becomes an apartment from the exterior, if you understand what I'm saying to you. So secondly, my other concern is that the stairway that's built on the east side now, the increase of the encroachment is because of poor design. Those stairs could have been tighter. They could have set this whole thing back another 8-9 feet, or 8 feet, I would say, and come again parallel with the cottage. So I see it as a self-created hardship here on whoever built it. Never designed it to meet the requirements that the present zoning regulations require. So those are my two concerns.
Well, house placement and lack of basement, I don't know if that's a
I'm sorry?
hardship per se, but
Well, two things that I would say with regards to the stairs. I don't know why this couldn't be engineered to tie into the deck on the second floor, even if you were to build this on the west end of the house. So I don't know that the stairs have to always automatically come to the ground. Once again, I echo what Pat said. This is just kind of poor design. What I'm concerned about is that we're getting into the business here of correcting building errors that maybe should have been addressed with the building department before the property was erected. I don't think that's really our job. I echo Noah's concerns that the two hardships stated, really nothing unique to the land. Maybe there's no basement that's unique to the building, and the location of the building is unique to the building, not unique to the land. So I have trouble seeing a hardship.
Matt,
I'd have to say that despite all the documentation, that is very clearly a self-created hardship. the fact that the contractor did not submit the proper building plans, unfortunately, is the responsibility of the property owner. And that's my position, despite the fact that a very good report was provided by Mr. Heise.
I don't dispute that, but whether it was poor planning or self-created, I think at this point doesn't meet the threshold question, is it a hardship? And I think that's what it is. Any other discussion? Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Greg. So I say it's a self-created hardship. They did not prove there was a hardship. It's also an excessive amount that they're looking for. There's other options also. I don't see a hardship.
Okay. Any other discussion, or is there a motion to close the discussion?
Make a motion to close.
Pat makes the motion. Rudy seconds it. All right, so it's time to vote. So it's going to be a yes or no. Yes to grant the variance, no to deny the variance. Okay, Deb, take the roll.
Yep. Greg,
I make a motion to deny the applicant.
Pat,
Make a motion to deny.
Rudy,
No,
Dave,
No,
Noah,
No. Okay. Any other business before the board? No, not hearing anything. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make
So
a
moved.
motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Good night, everybody.
30 seconds it. All right, we are adjourned, folks. Thank you all very much.
good evening.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all, everybody. Have a good night.
Yeah,
Chris? Chris? Is Chris there?
He should be. If not, I am if you need help.
Does that include, like, if I'm in the same slot, BA plus 30, or if they still do it that way, and then my number of years go up,